With the concept of the multiverse finally making its way into some of the most prominent MCU adventures, we as fans are continually learning more about the science and logic of the multiverse by MCU standards. Alongside us, however, are the characters within the confines of the universe itself, as many of them are just learning about the science of the multiverse as well, and are working to understand this wildly unexplored phenomena. One of the principal rules that we learn through the events of Loki revolves around the concept of NEXUS events being the primary reason for splits in timelines. It is explained that NEXUS events are events that divide a timeline into two paths, and we've seen numerous examples of this throughout some of the most recent MCU projects. Spoilers ahead for Spider-Man No Way Home will be beginning now. First though, we're giving away another Far From Home hot toy. To enter is really simple. All you have to do is like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. The rest of the very simple rules will be in the description down below. Now, let's get back into it. In No Way Home, we are left to wonder what ramifications the final conflict had on not only the main MCU going forward, but the Raimi universe and Webb universe as well, as Doctor Strange and the trio of Spider-Men seem to directly alter the fate of many of the villains throughout the course of No Way Home. So stick with us, watchers of the Marvel Multiverse, as we explore the possibility that Doctor Strange and Spider-Man created NEXUS events that split both the previous Spider-Man franchises into multiple deviant timelines, each with their own iterations of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. We got clues as to when exactly these villains were pulled from their respective timelines in the film, and the internal logic given by the movie is that they were most likely returned to the same point in time, as if they had never left that moment. For example, we largely believe that Doc Ock was pulled near his drowning in the river. However, new evidence has come to light that suggests he actually may have been pulled into the multiverse several crucial minutes before this. In the movie, Ock states that he had Spider-Man by the throat, and then that he woke up here, which we see in the film before he was ever pulled. Though, there is an important detail to mention about this scene. When he says this, he is being controlled by the arm, and during the scene in question at the end of Spider-Man 2, Otto regains control of the arms, albeit momentarily. What we're getting at here is it's theoretically possible that the arms blacked out in a sense and lost control, and they were reawakened after the drowning took place. What this means is that it's hypothetically possible that Doc Ock did in fact destroy his fusion reactor before being pulled into the mainline MCU. But accounts from other villains seem to indicate that they too were pulled earlier than we had previously believed. Take the Lizard as an example, who seems to have been pulled before his curing at the end of the first Amazing Spider-Man film. Not to mention that the Lizard is one of the two villains in the movie who was not set to die at the end of his own film. After the events of The Amazing Spider-Man, the Lizard is presumably cured and incarcerated, and Andrew Garfield makes no mention of him relapsing into the Lizard form again after the events of the first solo outing. This seems to indicate that once he is cured, he is permanently cured, at least in the mainline universe. If he is sent back in time before he was cured on the initial timeline, then this creates two iterations of Curt Connors on one timeline, and would likely cause a split in the timeline upon his arrival. Regardless of the internal logic, there are various inconsistencies that seem to indicate that the villains will be returned in their human state to a time where they should not have been, likely causing NEXUS events to emerge. Norman Osborn was cured of the Green Goblin, and may have been sent back to the Raimi universe where he should have remained dead, and this would most certainly deviate the timeline into a new branch reality where Osborn survives. This new reality could entail a scenario wherein a newly cured Osborn attempts to reallocate Oscorp's resources to help others as retribution for his misdeeds under the Goblin's control, and making Oscorp a much more substantial player in the Raimi universe would almost certainly steer the events away from the aforementioned timeline. Harry Osborn would likely never find out about his father's dual life, nor would he grow to be vengeful about his father's death, seeing as his father never died in the first place in this new timeline. Hence, there is no new Goblin in this new iteration of Spider-Man 3, and Harry and Peter's relationship presumably continues strongly. But while this could create in essence a new Raimi universe, this is not the only split that the Raimi timeline would encounter. In Spider-Man 2, if Doc Ock survives and has his inhibitor chip fully repaired, then he stands to continue using his arms for good and bettering the world with his brilliant scientific prowess. Spider-Man 2 falls into a unique position, however, as this NEXUS event is directly contingent on when Doc Ock was pulled into the multiverse, which as we mentioned is an unclear point of contention. If the arms blacked out like we mentioned and he did in fact sabotage the fusion experiment before being pulled into the multiverse, then he could be returned to a time where he could feasibly survive his drowning, and seeing as there was no appearance from Alfred Molina's iconic character in Spider-Man 3, this is likely yet another Nexus event that split the Raimi timeline into a third reality. If, however, he was returned to the moment that he had Peter by the throat, then Ock regaining control of the arms in Spider-Man 2 might have not been his own power of will. It may have actually been because he was repaired, or his inhibitor chip was, but a direct result of the events of No Way Home, though this would likely cheapen his character arc and the strength of his willpower, and thus we reasonably believe that this is the less likely of the two scenarios, especially given the immense respect for character continuity showcased by Marvel throughout No Way Home. What's important to note is that many of the antagonists from the previous franchises were also prominent public figures in their own right, who had drastic impacts on the events of their worlds. Norman Osborn, Otto Octavius, and Curt Connors were all brilliant scientists who were actively pioneering incredible scientific breakthroughs in their respective fields of study, and had significant impacts on their timelines. While Max Dillon did not have the same level of notoriety as any of the aforementioned characters, he was still an integral engineer at Oscorp, and though Flint Marko was not a highly prominent public figure or scientist before his transformation into the Sandman, he likely served as a significant presence after the events of Spider-Man 3 concluded. At the end of Spider-Man 3, Marko was firmly on the path to redemption, as he has the incredible abilities of the Sandman to help him on his journey in order to redeem himself fully. It is therefore reasonable to conclude that he had significant impacts on his timeline after the Raimi trilogy concluded. But even if this is inaccurate, the TVA states that something as small as being late for work can create a Nexus event and lead to a deviant timeline. Therefore, altering the natural course of these character arcs and returning them to their timelines could create any number of new realities where Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire continue to wear the mantle of Spider-Man and share many of the same memories as their primary counterparts from the principal timelines of origin. This leaves us to wonder how many alternate Raimi and Webb universes cropped up as a direct result of the events of No Way Home, and how many variants that each of these characters now have running around in the multiverse, and whether or not we might get a glimpse at some of these variant branches at some point in the future of the multiversal saga. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of this theory? Do you think that we're thinking way too hard about Spider-Man No Way Home? Or do you think that it created Nexus events in the original Raimi and Webb timelines? And if so, what do you think we can expect to see from these variant universes in the coming years? Again, my friends, don't forget to enter to win a Spider-Man Far From Home hot toy of your own. Where do you guys hope to see Tobey and Andrew crop up next in the Marvel Cinematic Universe or in the Marvel Multiverse? As always, my friends, hit that subscribe button to assemble and join our team, and I hope that you guys have a great day.